just the very first item is, while this is a committee meeting principally of the Enterprise Trade and Investment Committee, I just want to get the approval of members that other members from Finance and Personnel are able to ask questions at the meeting. So I presume that's agreed. Aye.
Not a joint committee as such?
No, it's not. It's the Enterprise Trade and Investment Committee with members from Finance and Personnel attending. So happy enough then that members are able to ask questions. Okay?
Yeah.
That's grand. No apologies. Sorry, one apology has been received from Fergal McKinney. Are there any other apologies from any other members? No.
Paul Given will be late, Chair.
Right. Okay.
Chair, just to say I'm presenting to on my Assembly Reform Bill to the ARC, so I might have to leave.
Right. Dead on, John. Now, agenda item number 2 is declaration of interest under Standing Order 69-4. Before taking part in any proceedings of the Assembly or its committees, a member must declare any interest, financial or otherwise, which is relevant to the debate or proceedings where such interest is held by a member or an immediate relative. And just as a timely point to remind committee members to declare any interest held by them which are relevant to the work of the committee. So I have to ask the question, does any member have any interest to declare? No? Okay, that's grand. And just for other members from the Finance and Personnel Committee, if you just indicate if you have a question that you wish to ask during any of the sessions, and Jim here will take note of it, and we can proceed from there. Okay, the next item is the oral briefing from Bell & Company on Cerberus and Capita, and the papers for this item include a briefing paper from Bell & Company, that's at page 6, correspondence from Cerberus to the First Minister at page 25, and with us here today we have Mr. Terry Bell, who's Principal and Company Director at Bell & Company, Miss Claire McCarraher, Corporate Case Manager, Miss, is it Lee or Leah? Leah O'Kane, who's Case Manager, and Mr. Paul Fitzgerald, Assistant Case Manager. Now, you're all very welcome indeed to the meeting, and thank you for taking the time to write to the committee about this very important issue. A lot of what, and I've read through your notes, your cases with some interest last night, that confirms to many of us what we may have been hearing anecdotally, but you've provided us with the evidence. Now the format is here today. We'll take some initial comments from yourselves and then open it up to some questioning from members, if that's okay.
Okay.
Just by way of, and it's for yourselves, you're the legally qualified people, or rather the professionally qualified people who will have the legal assistance in this. You have permission from the clients to present these cases to us, yes? Aye. That's okay, thank you for that.
Chairman, can I just raise a point, just clarify why Bell & Company are before this committee rather than the Finance Committee?
They wrote to us about the impact of the economy on these cases, and citing these cases, and we agreed that we would invite them before us because it involved a lot of people, a lot of firms, and the economic implications of it where job losses would be concerned. That's why we agreed that we would accept them before us here today.
Has the Finance Committee considered a similar request?
I don't know.
Not to my knowledge.
So they haven't approached the Finance Committee?
No, I take it you haven't written to the Finance Committee yet?
No, Claire's got a short statement here which will demonstrate our approach here.
Yes.
We actually wrote seeking a letter that was in public, a letter that was issued by Cerberus, which was sent to the First Minister in respect to the NAMA sale and how they were going to conduct themselves. Mm-hmm. Claire will give a bit more detail there in a bit of an opening statement, if that's okay, and that'll set out the context of our approach here. When we requested this letter, we intended, were then approached, would we make comments as to how we were finding that Cerberus and Capita, etc., were conducting themselves. So it wasn't us saying, can we go up and talk to you about this? It was the application, the approach for the letter, which we kind of received. But from there, we were asked to come and give our comments as to where Cerberus and Capita and their various other subsidiaries are in all of this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does that give you more?
Well, Chair, just had, I think perhaps another question. How many committees are now going to be involved in this? This is DETI, Finance, OFMD, FM. Who else is likely to be?
I honestly don't know who is.
Or is this going to
written
do the rounds of every committee in this house?
Not from our end.
No, I don't think so. Unless there's a particular relevance or importance to it. It's for that committee itself to determine if they accept or discern evidence is relevant to the workings of their committee, you know.
Back to, if I may, so back to what you were saying there, is to give you an input into what's professionally and or practically happening on the ground in terms of what's going on.
Yes.
We're not here we deal with, work with all banks and other financial institutions. We were asked to say, where are you with Cerberus? And that's the reason for our attendance. It's not,
Who asked you that?
It's not a case of us coming up here saying, please listen to our pleas here. That's definitely not the case. Our approach is to give the committee, in whatever form it takes.
Yeah, Mr. Bell, you said, someone said to you, please give us,
We were
where are you and Cerberus? Who
we were
said
invited here, yes.
that? Aye.
Can you what's the...
It was, I think it was someone from the Committee of Enterprise, Trade and Investment who also advised that they would invite the Committee of Finance and Personnel along if any members wanted to attend also. But we were asked to come and give a brief statement following on our request. Once we requested the letter of pledge that was submitted by Cerberus in April 2014, we pretty much give a short backdrop as to why we had requested it. I think following on from that statement, we were asked if we could come and give more information on that matter.
So this is not your request for a meeting.
No.
Rather, this is somebody else requesting you to come and give your view.
And brief the
Absolutely.
committees,
Right,
yes.
who was that, Chair?
Oh, sorry, we received information from Bell and Co. I don't know when it was back, a wee while back there.
Yeah.
We wrote to the committee.
Yes.
The committee then agreed on base of the issues that you'd raised
Absolutely.
around the economy, around the impact to businesses and potential job
Yeah.
losses. We agreed as a committee then that you would come forward
come-
and explain that to us.
And
Give
that's
us a bit
certainly
more
a
detail.
question.
Chair, it wasn't agreed. You invited them, isn't that right?
Yes, the committee did.
Well, but there's a distinctive difference between agreeing something and inviting someone to come. I mean,
Well,
I'm only
the
now
committee-
learning that these folk here have been invited here
Yes.
to give their views. So it wasn't sort of a matter that they wrote in and said, look, we've got some views here. We'd like you to hear what we're saying. That's not the way it was. They were invited by this committee.
Yes.
And who decided, well, look, now that we're bringing these folk, let's bring in finance, and maybe you should have brought in OFMD, FM, and maybe you should have brought in maybe environment for all I know. Who decided that?
The committee decided
Oh, this
to
committee?
invite Bell. Yes, this committee.
Well, I
This
must have
committee,
been a
Marcia, you
member
weren't
at
here
the
at that time,
time,
Millie. No, this is a wee bit. No, I'm sorry for the wee bit of confusion around. We received information from Bell and Co. a while back. I'm not too sure of the date of it. The committee looked at it and said there were issues here around the economy, around businesses, around jobs, and we decided let's hear from Bell and Company. So
this
they've been
is
a wee bit before your
this is a
time.
DETI committee with the finance invited and the finance chair co-chairing it.
It was the 24th of November we agreed that. Just
Yes.
that's by way of
Right, okay.
the information.
Chair.
Sorry, what's the point, Morris, is...
This is a DETI committee with the finance members invited and the finance chair co-chair. Is that right?
No,
Well, why is he sitting there?
because
That's the issue, is it?
this meeting today, just as I was outlining earlier on, this is a meeting of the Enterprise, Trade and Investment Committee.
that.
And we're hosting this meeting, this
Yes,
is
got
principally and uppermost, that's what it is. And because there are ongoing matters associated with this, we thought out of courtesy that the best thing would be is to notify the Finance and Personnel Committee rather than we doing something over here, as we're often accused of, things happening in silos around the place, out of courtesy because there's business ongoing elsewhere, under the conduct of another committee, that we inform that those members, and if they want to attend, they could attend, and we've just decided here today to give them permission to, if they so wish, ask questions.
And the chair's position? He's sitting beside the chair. I'm sure you've noticed that.
I've noticed, I had noticed it from earlier on
Yeah.
too as well, Morris.
And what's his role here?
He's
Guest.
he's chair of the Finance and
But
Personnel
he wouldn't be
Committee.
sitting down there, no?
Well, he can sit wherever he wants,
But
but
he's
you know,
decided to sit there.
Sure, if
I think we're getting tied up and stuff.
Let's get on
yes.
with it, Chair.
yes, please.
Yes.
I don't think we are, Chair. I think there is an issue here. But anyway,
So,
we'll see as the man
this is,
develops.
I have to say, just in terms of where we are, Morris, this is a format which is good practice, which has been used by other committees, and indeed, later on today, we're going to be dealing with the Food and Growth Strategy, where we're having a meeting with the Agriculture and Rural Development Committee to discuss issues material to that. So, I'm not working to another agenda by any means, manner, or fashion. All I want is just to hear there are problems here. I'm picking them up anecdotally from constituents as well, and I just want to hear from professional practitioners.
And Chair, let me
about
be
them.
quite clear. There is good practice, and good
Yes.
practice is often where you have a joint effort by two committees, of which I have some experience in the past,
Yes.
namely the Justice Committee and the Health Committee.
Yes.
And that was a joint effort by both committees, but this is not.
No, that was an ad
Right.
hoc.
With the chairman of the committee sitting co-chairing it, but anyway, that's good.
No, he's not co-chairing
Well,
it.
then what's he sitting there for?
He can sit wherever he likes. He can chair it from down
We
here.
can rearrange the
Down.
furniture,
I
but
think
the
we've
ship is
probably
sinking, Chair,
we've
so,
spent enough time on this week. If we could just get into the real issues that concern people, and the real issues that certainly concern me, and that's if people are going to lose their jobs and people be put out in the streets as a result of the difficulties that they're having with Cerberus and the pressures that the inordinate pressure that they're putting on families and putting on people. As I read last night in particular about a man whose father had just died, and the pressures they were putting on that family, just unacceptable. And I really want to hear from yourselves. You're the seasoned practitioners, you're the professionals, you're picking up the human face of this. And that's why we're here, to try and sort people and help them in their difficult times. Okay?
Okay.
So please continue.
Claire has a short statement here. If we can just give you that, hopefully that'll give you a context of where we think we are and the problems and situations and issues that we face going forward. So Claire, if you'd take over there, please.
First and foremost, our attendance here today is to discuss the letter of pledge that has been provided to our office by the First Minister's office, the contents of which have been provided, and we have been called before the committee to discuss the current ongoing to Cerberus, specifically in respect of the Ulster Bank loan sale. We wish to highlight that our intention here is not, as has been reported, to criticise Cerberus, but rather highlight the issues that borrowers currently face and try to establish a clear, open and constructive line of communication between all parties in order to ensure that there is progress and movement, thus allowing all parties to draw a final conclusion and prevent the development of a stagnant economy. Referring to the letter of pledge issued to the First Minister's office on the 25th of March 2014 by Cerberus in relation to the NAMA loan sale, it would be fair and reasonable to assume, however, that the letter of pledge is general and that the same principles apply in any loan acquiring event. NAMA Chairman Frank Daly and NAMA CEO Brendan McDonough commented upon the loan sale of the Project Eagle loan portfolio to Cerberus that NAMA management of this portfolio has been measured and supportive, taking into consideration the particular circumstances in the Northern Ireland economy. We are assured by Cerberus that they will adopt a similar approach. We have, however, identified many instances where Cerberus's actions have directly contradicted the way in which they have pledged to address local, smaller businesses and individuals upon loan acquirement to various local bodies. Referring again to the letter of pledge, we wish to highlight that point 3 is of ultimate importance to our discussions here today, and my colleague Leo Kane will read same out at the end of this statement. We see it as imperative that we both notify and obtain the support of both the Committee of Enterprise, Trade and Investment and the Committee for Finance and Personnel. We feel it imperative that we bring to your attention the hardships, difficulties and obstacles that your citizens are experiencing, which can be avoided if we all come round a table and discuss matters practically, realistically and professionally. This is not our sole perception, but rather perception shared with other leading professional firms and business colleagues, to include RICS registered valuers, accountants and solicitors, all who have attempted dealing with these bodies and who have experienced similar frustration. There are some instances that accounts are still being managed by the Ulster Bank. If an individual is to make representations on their own behalf, outlining their proposed steps to move forward in order to reach a consensual agreement and bring matters to an ultimate conclusion, then they must make their submissions to the Ulster Bank, who then provide same to Capital Asset Services, who then provide same to Cerberus, and then finally who then provide same to the relevant subsidiary company, for example Promontoria Iron Limited or Promontoria Ram Limited being another. As well as this, once a substantiated submission is made to Cerberus, which usually incorporates a sworn asset and liability statement and valuation reports conducted by RICS registered valuers. There has been many instances in which we have been told that the valuation supposedly obtained by Cerberus show that the value of the security held will cover the level of indebtedness in full. And this directly contradicts what our clients have been advised by the experts that they have instructed, such as RICS registered valuers, whose consideration very often is that the security assigned equates to only a small percentage of what is owed. However, valuation reports are being entirely disregarded. Within our brief summary, you will note that we have outlined that we have investigated and are educated in the psychology of debt, so as to ensure that we have profound insight and understanding of the ramifications and implications of financial pressures upon those who are being pursued for money's owing. You will note that we have highlighted the fact that in a recent summary has shown that 100% of cross-section borrowers interviewed admitted to having experienced suicidal thoughts as a result of their financial pressures. We can confirm that our client's wife suffered from a stress-induced illness as a result of the financial pressures she faced. Albeit this occurred prior to the Ulster Bank loan sale, however, clearly demonstrate that the mental and physical impact that financial pressure has on an individual is there and must be taken into consideration. Taking only the 8 case studies that have been presented before you, we can confirm that there is in or around 140 jobs at risk. Local people and businesses are trying to carry on with their daily operation and employment, yet are living under the internal threat that receivers could be appointed at any instance unless they meet unreasonable and unrealistic demands, for example, paying liabilities in full or pay over a significant lump sum within a short period of time. If these threats of receiverships are followed through, a significant amount of people shall be left jobless, which will have a knock-on effect on families, customers and individuals' ability to pay their own mortgages and household expenses. Furthermore, many local and well-renowned businesses, which have been trading successfully for more than a quarter of a century, in many cases, shall be put out of operation, which shall again have a knock-on effect on their customers and clients. If action is not taken, or if Cerberus do not change the approach that has been adopted, that this will only result in an influx of individuals proceeding with their own personal bankruptcies, a significant increase in the unemployment rate, which shall then result in individuals being dependent on state benefits, and a significant and detriment increase of properties being put to the open market and achieving a much lesser amount than the current market value, which shall then have a knock-on effect to the value of surrounding residential and buy-to-let properties. In previous instances, the direct and express support and presence of local ministers and MLAs has proven more than helpful in driving matters through to a final conclusion with other lending institutions and creditors. And as a result of this, we would respectfully ask for the commitment of both committees to assist these local businesses, individuals, employees and families. An overall meeting with Cerberus to discuss their overall agenda, transparency in their actions and decision process, and the timeframe that they are working to, and what they ultimately wish to achieve could prove most beneficial in this instance. My colleague Leah will now read out point 3 of the letter of pledge referred to.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If you do not have a copy of this letter, I have a copy
somebody's
here.
mobile must be in proximity to one of these microphones. It seems to have stopped now anyway, so... sorry, please continue.
You're okay, okay. If anyone does not have a copy of this letter pledged, I have a few copies here. Do you wish for me to continue?
That'd be
I
useful.
think that'll be useful.
Would you like
Which
the
is
letter
that?
pledged to the First Minister from Cerberus?
All right, yes, that's the one at page 25 in our documents.
Brilliant.
Do you want some copies?
Yes.
Yes, dated 25th of March 2014.
These were the principles that set out how NAMA was looking. Cerberus was going to conduct itself in respect to the NAMA loans. Could you pass those down, please? Thank you.
Why the Finance Committee don't...
Do you need any more? Or
Mr. Leslie.
I think we have more.
any others? Go ahead. And it gives the backdrop where Cerberus committed as to the way they're going to conduct themselves in terms of the loan purchases here and how they're going to treat the debtors in these cases. So, Leah.
So, if I could draw your attention to point 3 of that same letter. Brilliant. So I'll just read this out for yours. Many of the loans which form part of the loan book sale are secured by either corporate and or personal guarantees given by certain shareholders or directors of the underlying borrowers for an individual borrower in their personal capacity. Most of the guarantors are based in Northern Ireland. The existence of such guarantees may be impeding the development of new business ventures and new investment in their current businesses, as the guarantors may have difficulty raising capital or committing existing resources while such guarantees remain under the threat of being called and enforced by NAMA. Cerberus will release personal and corporate guarantees as a key part of consensual workout plans with cooperative borrowers. Cerberus underwriting of the loan book has not, to date, included the value of any assets other than the direct collateral assets securing the loans, and as mentioned above, we would be willing to waive guarantees for cooperative borrowers who agree to execute a consensual workout plan. Assuming the applicable borrowers cooperate in good faith in connection with such a workout plan and their agreement regarding a consensual restructuring transaction, and any and all contingent liabilities and or personal guarantees from the borrowers would then be released in accordance with the terms of the plan. Consequently, only the assets which are the principal subject or collateral for the underlying debt would be retained as security. The existing guarantees would be released, so they would no longer be an impediment to borrowers or guarantors for undertaking the new business ventures. We'll now take any questions you may have in relation to the statement and the documents that have been provided.
Okay. Right. That's your initial bit. Right. Could you tell me, just as I read through this, the common denominator just seems to be, aside from the personal and difficulties and everything associated with it, the pressure that people have been put under, there's a common denominator, common thread running through this, and that's valuations. Non-acceptance of valuations. Now, I have a suspicion what it is. You're at the game plan, but perhaps you could tell me, what's your idea of what the game plan is here? What's their strategy?
It's very difficult to determine that, in that there is no there is no transparency. A client is asked to present everything which we do. We go through, as Claire alluded to, we provide the sworn asset and liability statements, full chapter and verse, income reviews. A lot of documentation comes through. As a riposte, we're just getting, no, that's not the value, we see this, we see that. But there's no documentary evidence to support that. There is no transparency back. So we can, some of these submissions are quite substantial, but very often it's a 3 or 4 line email, no, we see further value and we require 100% repayment in this matter.
And we have requested for confirmation of what their valuation is based on, because obviously when we're making submissions to whether it's Capita, Asset Services or the Ulster Bank themselves, we provide RICS valuation reports, valuation reports conducted by a RICS registered valuer, which goes into full detail, for example, if it is a business, the background of the business and why they have come to the value that they have assigned. So Cerberus is given full chapter and verse. For just another example, in respect of the case study that was presented to you, one of the case studies that was presented to you, we had provided quite a lengthy valuation report conducted by a valuer. I also provided them, as they were refuting the valuation that was assigned to the property, I provided them with 4 pages of comparable properties within the local area, which showed that that businesses such as hotels, so on and so forth, were selling at a much lesser amount than even the value assigned to the property by our client's valuer, and it was not accepted. Every submission that is made, which is substantiated in full, we receive a 1-line reply which states that the proposal has been rejected and that they will not consider anything other than full repayment.
Is there not a process whereby you can take... Now, I've been in situations like that, and not dissimilar situations to what you're talking about, where you have one set of valuations, you have another set of valuations, but obviously you can compare and contrast the two, and maybe somebody has looked at one aspect of a business or a property and enhanced the valuation of that a bit or depreciated it a bit. Is there no governing body that you can return to and say, look, we're really not getting anywhere here.
But we're not even offered the opportunity of sight of the valuation.
Yes, I saw that.
So if you've got that, you're not sure whether you are comparing like, in line with your comment, you're not sure whether you're comparing like with like.
Yes.
Very often there'll be issues with the property that aren't picked up, etc. We had an instance recently, was not in this case, but you had two valuers complete loggerheads, but one went off just on the wrong tangent, and you had to bring him back. Unfortunately, it was quite a protracted case. So you need that transparency to be able to discuss it.
Yes.
A 3-line email after is just not adequate. This is people's lives. You can't say no, we don't think that's right, and just not support it. You can't, to my mind, anyway.
Yeah, but my point being is, aside from what they're doing, they're saying that they've used valuers now. Whether they have or whether they haven't, or whether it's just somebody plucking figures out of the air, we don't know.
We don't.
Because you can't get access to that. But a governing body of the district valuers,
Absolutely.
that type of thing, so that they can be instructed to look at the processes that are being used.
Absolutely.
That's a bit like banking or anything else.
Yes.
Is there any method whereby you can refer that lack of valuation or lack of transparency?
No, if you had two contrasting valuations, usually
Yes.
there's provision in an agreement whereby you say, OK, you've got two parties here at loggerheads.
Yes.
Very often in a lease, for instance, they'll appoint the chairman of the Institute of Chartered Surveyors to oversee it and take the decision. But if you've not got the transparency and openness of what the actual thought processes are and or the decision for that rejection, there's no argument to be had.
We have suggested also that the two experts meet to discuss both valuations, and we suggest that nearly every single instance where they come back and advise that their valuation is substantially higher. Now that's another concern, is we have valuation reports, and what they're coming back to advise is their valuations are substantially higher, and more than often the comment is that the value of the security will pay the full, the indebtedness in full, which in most instances is entirely incorrect. There is no way, given the valuation reports, in most instances, when they come back to advise that they disagree with the valuers, we advise them that we can suggest the meeting of the experts, which they would not consent to whatsoever and have not to date. And then we would provide them maybe with additional information or additional letter from the valuer, in some instances providing their backdrop of the financial institution that they are working on, if they're on the panel of agents, and why their valuation report should be considered. And again, we get nothing back other than their value is higher than that assigned by the instructed valuer.
Okay. Now,
Richard, can I just add that? Because the backdrop to all this, they bought a distressed, non-performing loan book.
yes.
Which everybody knows. I'm definitely big and ugly enough to realise that. That is what they purchased.
Yes.
But there's some aspirational desire to get back to that value. This is not just our frustration. This is shared by many professional firms across, particularly Belfast, and I know up in Derry, London, Derry. So it's not us, as I said, what you said at the beginning, it's not us coming down here. So this is what's being experienced across the board here.
Well, can I just ask then the scale of the problem with yourselves? You've cited there, 7, 8 examples of yourselves where there have been problematic ones. Have there been any, well, first of all, could I ask just how many, if you like, cases you would have live with this process through Cerberus? And secondly, have there been any of them where they've made any modicum of, or displayed any modicum of reasonableness in terms of resolution or trying to arrive at some accommodation of the difficulties that your clients had?
Okay, we have about 15 cases directly with Cerberus at this moment in time, and as yet there's been no conclusion. We have one case where it could get to a conclusion in that we're talking about an end figure, but it's a ridiculous end figure.
Right.
It's beyond great. But that's where we are. Now, this element of Cerberus is a small part of what we do. And we've gone through the process and we've worked with all banks right the way across the board. And again, this is Cerberus fairly early on their pitch. But it's knowing, we don't expect them to offer up their tactics and how they're going to do this, but there's a lot of unknown. A lot of these people, we haven't gone to the pressure the people, our clients and others are under. But they've been through 5 years of this already. They've been through Ulster Bank in whatever guise they took. they're back out of this. There's some sort of comments that aren't very good in some of this. You know, there's a couple of they do have the right to enforcement, and we're told that. We know that, but these people have been through a fair bit already, and it's that ability to be able to have an open conversation with them, and the transparency is all you ask.
Right. Now, can I just come back, because you referred to 160 jobs potentially could be at risk. Are those across a range of sectors, or are they in particularly economically vulnerable sectors?
There's a few sort of low-pay sectors, for instance.
Yes.
I don't want to go into the detail, too much detail on it.
I understand.
But there'll be quite a few sort of minimum wage people in there, but there'll be skilled people in there as well. There is a good spread on it. Mainly, say, would say the people that would be more closer to the minimum wage.
Right. Okay.
But again, across the board.
But and without getting too much into the individual cases, you would see, you're the practitioners, you would see that with some accommodation, these firms could be steadied up and could be kept on a stable footing and could come out the other end as a practical, good working business. Could you?
Absolutely. If they carry the debt that is, and it's not just about the forgiveness, it's to ensure that you've got business that can go forward with sustainable debt.
Yes.
And we've, as Claire alluded to earlier, we visited Stump before with another client who had, I think they had about 100 employees, and the input from here was very good. It gave it a bit of gravitas as to what was being discussed. And I think that's very, very important. We're relatively small fry in this. We as a firm, we're not here shouting we're great. We're a small fry here. So this is compounding across Northern Ireland and into the south for sure.
Yes.
But it goes back to that unknown. It's a terrible thing. People have had 5 years of this, and then to have, they have a job to do, Cerberus, but there's ways of doing it, we suggest.
Yeah. So, what do you see as not the solution, but the better way of doing things? How do you see this, or how do you see indeed an assembly committee or departments or anything like that?
Well, if we go back to the pledge, the letter of pledge, okay,
yes,
set out, yes, it was for the NAMA arrangement, okay, and there have been other arrangements from it. But you'd possibly suggest that's almost one law for a certain type of borrower, and then you've got the smaller guys, medium-sized ladies and gentlemen that are out there under this pressure, under a lot more pressure than anybody there. And you're looking for a consistent approach, going back. The figures are out there. They paid 20 to 30% for these loans, whatever the figure might be. Yes, every case is different. Get a return on your money by all means. We've been in meetings where, yes, this is a quick process right at the beginning, but no, here we are 6 months later, and everybody, not just us. It's not, keep reiterating, it's not us coming up here. Let's bash Cerberus up here. People aren't getting anything through,
Well,
and nobody knows which way it's going to go. If the letter of pledge was adopted across the board, Cerberus, I'm pretty sure, make a very good return anyway, without the torture.
Well, then, ultimately, that brings me back to the original question that I asked, and that is, what's their game plan? Is the game plan just to bang these businesses and whatever properties there are, sell them on, and get the bang for their buck?
I don't think it is, and I sincerely hope it isn't, because it would be a disaster.
No.
But we don't know. At this moment in time, we just don't see anything coming through at the moment.
Right.
Speaking with various representatives at Capita Asset Services, it would appear that, opposed to Cerberus wanting to, close down businesses or anything like that, it would appear that we have been advised that they would assign a certain figure that they want to achieve from a connection. Some refer to as the magic number, and that's on numerous occasions now that we have been told if you meet our figure, then we will agree, no matter what the value of the security, no matter what representations. When we ask what that figure is, that's up to you to find out. So it would appear, and again, just further to discussions with Capita representatives, that they've assigned a figure to each connection, and if you meet that figure that they've assigned, which obviously, and they have stated, the capital representatives, that they want to make a return on each connection of a certain amount.
Yes.
And if you meet this figure, no matter what your proposal is, no matter what the valuation is, that will be accepted. But coming to finding out what that figure is, you know, they will not, under any circumstance, advise of how they've came to that figure, how they see that figure being achieved. You know, if they come back and advise that a proposal has been rejected, we ask, can you please provide your reasonings for rejecting this proposal? If you find that there is further funds to be raised through any other properties or from any other sources, please advise us, because our clients will do their utmost. But usually offers that we submit are the absolute maximum that can be raised by clients. And most of the offers put forward in most of the cases are from third-party family and friends.
Yes.
And without their assistance, there would be a higher amount of bankruptcies proceeding. You know, if our clients didn't have assistance from third-party family and friends to fund an offer to Cerberus, then we would advise them and we would have to bring them through the process of bankruptcy. You know, so it's not like we are dealing with clients who have a lot of savings in bank accounts or who have a lot of equity in properties. These are individuals who are struggling, and individuals who I have seen, even over the past couple of months, come under a lot of pressure
Yes.
from the attitude that has been adopted here.
And can you just elaborate just a wee bit as to the type and form and manifestation that pressure takes, just?
The pressure on an individual.
Yes.
One individual in particular calls me twice on a daily basis and is under unbelievable stress. And no matter how many times I will advise of what we believe the process is or what we are doing, they're ringing. They're not. We have individuals who aren't sleeping, who family members
Right.
would.
They being who ringing?
Oh, clients.
Clients.
Sorry, clients who would be
Right.
involved in this process.
Okay.
We also.
If you go into a meeting, sorry Claire, if you go into a meeting and the client attends in the meeting and the lender, whoever it might be, continually reinforces the fact that they have the right to enforcement, those people are looking down the drive at all times. There's a street. And if any lending institution appoints a fixed charge receiver, whatever form they take, there is no notice by the very nature of it.
Yes.
The appointees attend and take over from there. So it's an ongoing fear. No matter there are men and women who look very strong on the outside, but they have that who's that coming down the drive approach. It's not a good way to conduct it. It's awful for the economy. It's gone on forever and a day. There are good men and women trapped still 5 years hence in this, who I know are essentially hiding for the economy. It's desperate. And it's the toll. We have some clients, we all age, we have some clients where you see, if you don't see them for 2 or 3 months and they turn up at the office, everyone, wow, what happened there? You know, there's people have been seriously. We don't want to go into too much detail on that. We can give that in separate cover if you like. But some people have taken some terrible times on this, with taking a toll on their health. The backdrop there, Claire came out with an incredible statistic there, which sounds crazy. 100% of those in serious debt are contemplating suicide. That isn't our statistic. That's from a very eminent organisation. It's the toll that debt takes. It's anything that's unsustainable. People just don't know what they're going to be doing, and it's on their mind every time. Unfortunately for the nature of our business, we deal with a lot of farmers. They're under massive duress at the minute, and everybody knows of what's going on in the rural economy. And it's very hard to put across. Sorry, Chair, I'm labouring it, but it is such an important thing. It is such a personal thing to us as well. Yes. We do this. We work because we all want to go to work and earn an income, etc. But this is very personal to us as well. Sometimes I let myself down. Hopefully, I won't today. But to actually try and get over what some people are going through is very difficult. And it's not. Most banks don't often take a lot of account of that, which they should do.
Okay.
Sorry.
Guy, do you want to continue there?
Thank you, Chair. I think just in terms of that final point, that's the most important point. Rather than all the figures and the cases, it's people's health at the end of the day. So it's not just businesses, it's not just individuals, it's the family members, it's the spouses, it's the kids, it's the 40 employees and all their families as well. So I think we should have that at the foremost of our minds. Can I just ask, in terms of trying to put this into context, I mean, obviously you deal with many different banking and lending institutions. How does this compare with those institutions, and also obviously in terms of NAMA, did you have any dealings with them before Cerberus took over?
We haven't had a lot of dealings with NAMA, to be honest, totally. We're usually lower, under 5 million typically is our maximum lender. Other institutions taking different approaches, but you know where you are. Ulster Bank have been a difficult one because they were sort of rudderless for a few years, didn't really know where they were going in terms of direction on what was because of where they were. But at this moment in time, everybody knows Cerberus are on board. There is going to be finality at this stage. And at this particular moment, in our particular dealings with Cerberus, we don't have the confidence to say to clients, don't worry about this will get resolved. We don't have that in many instances anyway, but at this moment in time, if you're asking the specific question, Mr. Chair, that we don't know where, our clients don't know where they are, which is the worst feeling of all. And good people. Good people. These people that steal here have paid a lot of their dues along the way.
Yep.
Going back to what we were saying in the letter of pledge, people that cooperate, they will be civil and kind to. Not quite the case at the moment.
Sorry if I could just interrupt as well. The people who are typically our clients would be the ones who would be consensually selling properties to assist Cerberus. These are clients who are fully cooperative, and ultimately, as Terry had rightly said, they thought there would be an end to this. You can see even from the letter of pledge, they wanted to stop the stagnant economy. They're not doing that. There's no actual movement with them. We don't know what way it's going to go forward. And that obviously is having a detrimental effect on their health, as also carried before it as well.
I mean, just on that point, we're obviously conducting an inquiry in the Finance Committee in regard to the sale of Project Eagle, and we've been looking to see if there's any references to Cerberus that could be raised today. And when the former First Minister was before the committee, he stated that Cerberus, and I quote, will be a tough negotiator, and depending on the extent to which debtors are willing to work with Cerberus, the responses have been different. So there's a view there that if you're cooperating with Cerberus, if you're doing what you can, then there will be some sort of accommodation. What you're saying is that these businesses are bending over backwards and still fighting a closed door.
It depends on how Cerberus defines being cooperative. Some of our clients have been asked to make significant lump payments within a 24 to 48 hour period. If individuals can do that and comply with their requests, then maybe that's what they foresee as being cooperative. Most of our clients cannot raise significant sums within a 48-hour period. Also, in respect of rental income, monthly payments, Cerberus knew that this was a non-performing loan. Most of our clients have not been able to maintain monthly payments, their contractual monthly payments over maybe 12 months. So for that to be requested again, we show them the income and expenditure statement, which shows that in most cases our clients are fully reliant on third-party family and friends to even meet the day-to-day needs each month because of the low income that they are on and the high expenditures. Some individuals with families with up to 5 independents. So if being cooperative is meeting a significant payment within 48-hour time frames or continuing to pay the monthly payments, there's individuals out there who cannot comply with them requests, and maybe that is what is being defined as individuals who are not being cooperative.
But obviously on the reasonable man scale, a cooperative borrower, you would assume, would be somebody that's willing to work with Cerberus to maximise their return. You would assume that that's what it would be, but it's not ultimately what has happened.
I mean, ultimately, the issue for these businesses is the fact, regardless of what the deal is, they just want the deal done. Because the longer this hangs over any individual, of course, the risk of suicide and self-harm and all those issues will increase. Because we're nearly 10 years on from the economic downturn, which at least I presume some of these businesses were caught out by that. So it is important in terms of the wider economy that they are given an opportunity to move on. But in terms of some of these tactics that are being deployed in terms of these 24 or 48 hour ultimatums, coupled with the fact but they're not returning phone calls or having a meeting to try and reach some accommodation. I mean, is there a message? Is there a lesson for us in terms of not only politicians but the business and banking community that we need to be wary of bringing in institutions that deploy these kind of tactics in the future?
That's a difficult one in that we appreciate that all lending institutions have got to still do their utmost for stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And there are instances where people will abuse the system, we'll call it, or the process, whatever. It's a case of, so they obviously have to have ways they conduct themselves still, and I think the FCA are more than on top of most of those things. But it's still, as you say in the Chair, it's still trying to recover from the 5-10 year process here. It's a crazy position for a country to be in, let alone a lending institution. So I'm not actually answering your question there, but it's a difficult one because you have got to see the lending institution have got to have certain criteria and protocols they've got to adopt to look after their stakeholders at the end of the day.
There are various departments in alternative lending institutions which also adopt the approach of face-to-face meetings and maybe trying to attempt a phone call and then not returning the calls. It does happen. At the same time, the same the departments or the individuals who have carriage over the case consider the position and are in most instances fully transparent on where that lending institution is, what they're trying to achieve, and whether it takes a significant amount of time, an agreement is ultimately reached. But again, it's more commercial. It's based on the borrower's ability to pay. It's based on if there is any assets surrounding them. An agreement is reached that will not burden their financial position any further than it already is. Because the last thing that anyone wants to do is to reach an agreement, whereas they have to take out a loan from a loan shark or a loan from other sources, where they're again trapped in the cycle of debt over again, and then they will more than likely not be able to repay that loan. Which in a lot of cases we have to advise our clients and stress to our clients not to go down that route of taking loans with high interest rates because they are unable to pay it. Clients would suggest it to us in order to increase their offer to a lender, and individuals have suggested to us to increase their offer to a proposal that went to Cerberus, and they can't because they cannot meet the monthly repayment, let alone the interest rates. So to answer the question, face-to-face meetings are most definitely beneficial, but an agreement can be done without that happening, as long as what's being taken into consideration is the individual's financial position, and not just what they're aiming to achieve or the figure that they're aiming to achieve.
Who have you met at a senior level within Cerberus? I mean, I was in regard to be certain individuals on a case-by-case basis, but in terms of management, in terms of whoever's setting the strategic direction of the company.
We generally meet, usually when you come to the initial meeting, it's usually with a vice president of Cerberus, and there'll be sort of 3 or 4 of those that we've sat down. But that's usually to get the process started. As you go on, then you're back into capture the gathering up. Claire gave you the process. Potentially you're still going through Ulster Bank to make a submission. That then goes to Capita and up the line to Cerberus, Promontoria and or whatever variety there. But again, going back to what I was saying about the transparency, we can make submissions, say, to Capita, but they come back, no, we're looking at full repayment here and or we don't agree with the valuation. So you have the initial consultation with Cerberus, but then they seem to step back and leave it to their facilities.
In terms of those engagements with Cerberus, they seem cordial, they seem to be engaging.
Civil enough, but they do tell you where they stand.
Yeah, Capita don't.
No, especially the initial meetings were very civil. We can move on with this. This is what we're looking to do. We're not long-term lenders. We need a solution out of this. As time's gone on, for whatever else is going on, they're still stuck.
Yeah. And who were the initial meetings with? Sorry, the vice presidents.
Vice presidents. The various vice presidents within Cerberus,
okay,
who are usually appointees here in North and the South.
And who are they? How many of those are there?
in terms of names.
Yeah.
There's a guy who, and some of them are ex-Ulster Bank, very civil guys, and they have a job to do. Kevin Craig would be the principal contact here. Kevin's a good man, he works away, and we had dealings with him at Ulster Bank, but he has obviously a role to play as well where he is in Cerberus now. So,
Prior to contacting the committee, we did make representations also to the individuals at Cerberus, our contacts at Cerberus, who were present in the meeting, and said if there's any issues you can contact us. So prior to even contacting the committee, we went straight to Cerberus and outlined all the issues, just like the summary that we've provided yourselves. And the response that we got was, please refer back to the case manager at Capital Asset Services. We had requested face-to-face meetings. Obviously, we wanted to, throw everything on the table with them and talk about the issues that our clients were facing, and hopefully come to some sort of conclusion, or at least some sort of idea of what their intentions are or what their process is. But again, that was never forthcoming.
Just one final question then, Chair. The Finance Minister has indicated the DFP officials meet regularly with Cerberus to discuss its local operations and approach, and presumably there would be officials within Derry that would do the same. Have you received any response from either minister to the concerns that you've raised?
No,
we're waiting contact, aren't we,
Yes.
from Finance Minister's office to discuss.
Okay. Just to explore one or two other things that we've been touched upon there. Interest rates. What level of interest rates are we talking about? Are those variables, or do they vary according to the level of perceived risk that is associated with the loan, or what are we talking about?
As a generalisation, they adopt the rates that were during the party of the loan. They're not punitive, and with respect, usually they're irrelevant, because if you owe £1 million and a property's worth 500,000, a wee bit more on the bill isn't the worst thing in the world. It's Cerberus are looking for some servicing of the loans, which is quite right, and where clients can do that, they do. But in terms of, I don't think they're being, not 100%, but I don't think they're being punished. It's not a penalty rate as such.
Just two other things, and I read your case 1 and case 6 there, and your perception was that proposals weren't being fully read, and in some cases you were ignored, and then case 6, they admitted that they hadn't looked at, or did they have access to the client's file, and they had no idea what value had been assigned to the security that was being held.
That was when we were attending a meeting with Capita.
That seriously doesn't sound to me like a very useful meeting.
It was.
In example 6, we had requested a meeting as a matter of urgency, and we were advised that members of Cerberus would be present because of the conduct of individuals and how this case was being treated. We had went on for weeks to request a meeting, and it was denied.
Sorry, sorry for interrupting there, Claire. What do you mean by the conduct of individuals? Do you mean within Cerberus or Capita? Where was the?
I don't know if it's an individual or maybe just the overall, the overall attitude that maybe has been adopted in cases, and maybe an aggressive approach that has been, foreseen in quite a few different cases.
Yes.
In example 6, it was all about valuations.
Yes.
We had conducted, our client had instructed valuers to conduct their own valuations. The report itself was in around 30 pages long. It went into the ins and outs of the business, so on and so forth, how many employees, recent comparable properties, and that was put forward. And there was no comment on the valuation report. All that they advised was their value differs from ours. That's the same case where I had provided 4 pages of comparable local properties that sold within the 12-month period. Again, was not considered. They eventually agreed to a meeting, and when we attended, the client attended also. The Cerberus, first of all, we were advised that Cerberus was no longer able to attend, and we were given a 15-minute slot, which we didn't know that there was a time restriction on the meeting because we wanted to discuss it in full. And they openly admitted at the beginning that they had not read the case. And when we had asked questions and raised the fact that, for example, that there was jobs at risk, all that we were told in return was, well, that's a legal matter, we cannot comment on that. And again, the valuations, they had no idea of the value that had been assigned to properties. They said that the only individuals that know that is Cerberus.
Well, was there any product after that meeting? Was there any follow-up to that where Cerberus did become involved? Or?
No, after that meeting, it proceeded. We had made one final submission. We had made a further submission, which again was ignored, and receivers were then appointed over the property. Now, we're still in ongoing discussions with Capita and await a response from a further submission that was made in around 3 to 4 weeks ago. Although receivers have been appointed, the property is not on the market. No one has been asked to vacate the premises. And it would appear that the instructor receiver is we're making representations to them now.
Well, have there been job losses as a consequence of that?
Not as of yet, no. If they choose to proceed with the sale of the property, then the business will have to vacate and all jobs in that premises will be lost.
Okay, right. Mr.
Thank
Dunn.
you, Chair.
Gordon?
Thank you very much for your information. I think as MLAs and those of us that are active in our constituencies, certainly, we're very sympathetic to what you're saying. I think it's important that there is transparency, and we believe in it totally. Just a couple of points. Mr. Bell, have you lobbied any other MLAs about this issue, or had any correspondence with any of the members of this Assembly?
Not on the Cerberus issue, no.
Have you had any generally, though, about...
Generally, we've lobbied MLAs, yes, before in previous cases.
You have?
Yes.
Previous cases?
Especially but only when there are jobs at risk.
A job at risk, okay. Have you can you give us any further information on that, as to who you contacted, or...?
There was the client. One client had a spread of businesses, and there were 4 individual MLAs he approached. I think it was Ian Milne stepped up, and we had a meeting with the financial institution here at Stormont with the Deputy First Minister.
Okay, right, thank you. Just then, what about you, obviously, as the company director, and you've obviously touched on it, and to be fair, you've done something about it. What about making representation to the Finance Minister? Have you thought about that? Or
Submissions have been made. We're still waiting a meeting with his representative.
have you asked for it?
We have, haven't we?
Yeah, they have issued a letter to advise that they will soon be in contact to arrange a meeting.
So that is the process?
That's in the process, yes.
And when was that initiated?
I think we received a response in around 3 weeks ago. I just need to confirm the exact date on that. That was issued directly to my colleague Helen, who isn't present today. But I can confirm the date on that.
Yeah. And the other point, then, the upturn in the economy, you're listening to the news this morning there was positive news about the upturn in relation to how units are being filled within even Belfast city centre, which is all positive.
Yes.
Now, we're sitting here as elected representatives, we don't know all the details, but obviously that is a factor in what, and the reasons as to why negotiations are more difficult than what they were. Is that something that needs to be taken on board here?
It does, I suggest it does to a degree, but in terms of when Cerberus's original arrival, if you like, here, they're here for the short term. Every client is advised when they're going into a meeting, we're not lenders. It's not as though they're saying, right, okay, here you go, there's your loan, we'll rewrite that as a 5 or a 10-year loan. Cerberus on a very short time scale. There was an interesting article in one of the papers, I can't remember which one, but working that these guys usually would try to work. Typically, any loan purchaser looks to try and turn that loan book around in 2 to 3 years. So I take on board possibly there could be a bit of that, but I don't think it's particularly selling its way Cerberus and or the likes of the other loan purchasers conduct themselves.
It is a factor, though.
Could be a factor. Could
Okay.
be.
What about the Financial Ombudsman, or have you made any representation to them?
No. Nothing as yet.
About the lack of transparency?
No.
Haven't.
Maybe a route that we'll have to investigate a bit further, but hopefully.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, that's a useful point that Mr. Dunn has made, because clearly they're not supposed to be operating completely blindsided in a vacuum offside, and that's why a lot of these financial regulations were brought in. So I know it's for your client to determine whether they want to choose to go that route, but it may well be a route that you'll have to go. the urgency of the situation and how quickly the financial ombudsman can get their teeth into a case, that
It's another thing.
that's another thing, is right. So, and Tuasal O'Muller, Marching.
Garmada Cahirley, thanks for coming in. I mean, that's what we're here for, to let the public air their concerns about the economy and about the creation of jobs. And I sit on another committee, a finance committee, which is investigating the NAMA Cerberus scandal. But you're actually dealing with a part of it we haven't really looked at all. You're dealing with, I suppose, the smaller fish in the pool, because some of the people we have spoken to owed NAMA €500 million, for example, which is a lot more than some of your clients. But I have received some phone calls, especially since our investigation started, from people, some of them farmers, you mentioned that previously, that stretch themselves too far, perhaps get carried away. And I do a lot of work with the banks, and I'm happy to declare that interest, Chair, but the banks encourage this. Sometimes farmers were told by the banks, look, no problem, we're going to get planning permission for that field, borrow £1 million against it or whatever. And some people did build houses and got into trouble. What it seems to me is that when, and it is a concern, I think, that the Ulster Bank let these loans go to Cerberus, because I would have thought that any of the banks would have been better guardians of these loans than Cerberus. But the person I spoke to said that really no information, no real guidance as to what Cerberus want. And these are smaller, if you wish, smaller people, important people. That meetings with Cerberus are yes, no meetings. You were very fortunate. You got a 15-minute meeting. I got a 6-minute meeting, I think. I mean, and that you're really just working in the dark.
Exactly.
And I wonder, I mean, I think Mr. Dunn's comment about the finance ombudsman is very interesting. I think we should write on the back of this, because I'm not sure the finance ombudsman's powers extend to the Financial Conduct Authority as well, the FCA. I'm not sure how much those sort of authorities have sway over the likes of Cerberus. But I suppose the question I would ask you is, how do you close on these? Or do you think that what Cerberus is doing is they want your people to walk away because they see, having bought, let's say they bought an asset, and we're talking about smaller assets, let's say they bought an asset which cost £1 million, someone borrowed £1 million for it. They bought it for 200,000, say, which is 20%, which is about where we are, and they want 700,000. They want to make a £500,000 profit, and maybe they think there's another client out there. Maybe they're trying to break your people, as it were. How do you close on these? I mean, because it seems to me you're totally in the dark.
At the end of the day, going back, we were speaking to one of your colleagues earlier when he was saying about is there a rise in the asset values? There could be. Obviously, they've got to maximise their return. We appreciate that, and but they won't. Some of it might be slightly commercially here. Some of the decision process, in the limited number of cases we have with them, we look at them and think, why did you do that? Why did you appoint a fixed charge receiver? Typically, the appointment of a fixed charge receiver is going to hit the value, because it's going to be marketed as a property in possession, and we just can't work out the commerciality. But this, I think, is whether it's a trust issue. We've never had trust issue with any banks or any institution. It's that transparency and saying, being able to say, if you put a fixed charge receiver in that, you're crazy, and you're going to lose your company more money. And they obviously they're a very commercial organisation and very driven. Flip side of it is, they've got to give the client the opportunity to know what they're playing against. Okay. The client, and we would say this because all our clients are great. No, all our clients are involved in this and have gone through this 5-10 year process of struggle to where they are now. They're ready to try and work this through. They've hung on. Many a man and a woman have thrown keys and headed to the bankruptcy courts, because that's what that's there for. That's not a criticism. But a lot of these men and ladies are trying to battle through. And there is going to be some finality here. But it's knowing what the rules are, if you like. Going back to what you said.
Well, let me ask that: are there any rules?
Sorry?
Are there any rules with Cerberus?
I think they are, but they're holding it a bit close to their chest.
And question that comes to mind is: are you surprised at that? I mean, this is a vulture fund. This is a fund that prides itself on its cutthroat, rapacious approach to people. I mean, it's really slash and burn. Were you surprised? That's not how they make money. They make money by saying to people, "We're going to go in, we're going to buy at the lowest price."
Well, absolutely. But as time goes on, we went into the initial meeting, so there was a bit of a lag when they bought the loans to get themselves set up, so they had Capita ready to be their facilities management company. And I remember the day I was with a client. I think it was the 24th of July. 28 days to get a proposal. We want to get out of this. Off you go. And everybody rushed to one corner of Donegal Square because there was only one bank at that time lending money. There was a poor bank manager under severe pressure there to knock out these letters of offer. Yep, we can do this, we can do this. Since that date, 6 months hence, no movement, which I think is strange. These guys, Cerberus, I'm sure, and all loan purchasers are on a short time scale. Property is a slow thing to move around. You don't just quickly in and out. You're not selling a tin of beans here. And you would think there would be a bit more urgency on that side. What else is going on in the background, I don't know, and quite frankly, I'm not interested. These are our clients who are suffering. Give them the civility, if nothing else, of knowing where they stand. Because, as I say, they've suffered. I don't make any apology. I get really emotional about this. I'm by no stretch a communist, but I get really concerned as to what people are going through. And if you don't know, that's the worst thing of anything. The unknown is a desperate thing.
Think it's immoral?
I wouldn't take a moral stance on it. They have a job to do. I think it's wrong. I don't think it's helping their case for sure. Immoral is difficult. If anyone's put under unnecessary pressure to answer a question differently, it's immoral.
Let me talk to you the figures. So Project Eagle was €5.7 billion, bought by NAMA, 2.2 billion NAMA paid for those loans at face value of 5.7 billion euro. It was bought by Cerberus for 1.24 billion and plus a million. They threw in a million. Amazingly, they knew the price to bid and put a million on it. So the taxpayer in the south, having covered the losses from the 5.7 billion down to 2.2, then lost another 783. So by any stretch of the imagination, Cerberus got the bargain of all bargains. So how much is enough? Because of course they're commercial and people have to respect that. But how much is enough? Because we go back to that example of the person a farmer who borrowed £1 million and was told by the bank, no problem, I'll get you £1 million, build 2 houses in that field, you're going to sell for a huge price, you're going to be okay, and everything turns against them. Cerberus have bought that million for 200,000. How much is enough? Because you seem to be saying that Cerberus, there is no enough, that in fact they might end up with more than £1 million as the market recovers.
Well, it could be
for a property they bought for 200,000 on face value of £1 million. So much is enough for Cerberus?
I can't answer that. Obviously, I'm not Cerberus, but they want the return of their money.
Well, so they need 200,000 to get the return of money. They need 200,000.
Absolutely.
So
well, there are people far more learned than me saying these guys work on 24 months, 20% return on your money. So in terms of whatever they paid, it's, as you're alluding to in those figures, there's enough room for them to work their way through it. And so, going back, I keep labouring the smaller guy, okay? And we refer to that letter of pledge, and if nothing else, at some point, whenever you're speaking to Cerberus, so that was for NAMA, obviously, and back to the guys that are up in the upper echelons of what they borrowed, okay? But that seems to set the precedent of the way they're going to conduct themselves. Our clients are getting battered personally, not just the businesses. So losing the business is going to be bad enough. Then they're looking behind that at guarantees. Then they're looking behind at what other assets you may have. Now, I wouldn't even start to think about giving this committee any sort of direction. That letter is there. That is a very important document. If that sets that out, going back to knowing how they're going to conduct themselves, surely that should be the precedent, but across the board. That gives the small guy, again, I'm by no stretch of comments, that gives the small guy a chance to get out there so he can go on and create. If you're going to get an economy that goes, there are lots and lots of good people, really good people, trapped still this time on. And you've got that footprint, if you like, on their head at the minute. So I implore the committee to take that up with Cerberus. Is that a general rule? They'll say no, but it should be.
Well, can I just finish, Chairman? You can take it from me that, as far as I'm concerned, this committee, and I think I don't need to speak for the Chair, but I certainly speak for all the members, if not the majority, that we do stand with the small business owner, the farmer, those who are distressed in debt,
Yep.
working their way through it, who want to honour their debts, who need a way out, and we would like to see those people back on their feet contributing to the economy. And when it comes to a choice between a vulture fund like Cerberus, which has no rules as far as I can see, and the small people we represent, I want to stand with the small people. Chair, I would suggest that you may have better luck than us, because Cerberus won't talk to us.
Right.
So much respect for the elected representatives of this benighted
Right.
part of the world. They won't speak to us, but perhaps the chair has a more enticing invitation. But certainly, Cerberus need to answer some of these allegations, Chair. But thank you for being a public service by coming.
I was going to come to that just in the wash-up at the end, but I have Mr. Cree, Leslie.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, folks. No, I think you're right. This document, this pledge or invitation to treat, I would maybe call it, is a significant document here in this. And in point 5, they talk about immediately following the consummation of the transaction. Nice term of phrase. They intend to enter into discussions with each of the borrowers with a view to negotiating a consensual resolution. Then they go on to say in the debt for equity, all the various sort of things that may be possible. Simple question, to the best of your knowledge, did they do that?
No.
Did they meet each one of them?
Our experience, no. The terms and conditions in there, most of those have not been adhered to in that whole letter. This is for NAMA, okay, going back, sorry to interrupt you. This is for NAMA, and with respect to Cerberus, the size and the type of developments and the properties involved in here are usually top-end properties. There'll be shopping centres alike. So that is a low-hanging fruit. That's the easy one to go. The smaller guys definitely not being afforded those rights. And
But it's quite unequivocal. It does say with each of the borrowers.
Now, with point 5, they are allowing individuals to put forward submissions. It would appear that they're not being taken into consideration, and that, you know, in quite a few instances recently, receivers are just being appointed. Now, they are allowing individuals to make their submissions. Now, whether or not they're being reviewed and considered by top level to ascertain whether or not, you know, that is the most commercial route to proceed down, and in order to agree a consensual agreement is another.
That again is not doing what they say. They say they intend to enter into discussions with each of the borrowers. They haven't done that.
they're afforded the time. Back to the initial meeting you had with Cerberus, this is Capita, this is so-and-so, but that's it. Then you're into Capita, you make your submission, no discussion. No thank you, full repayment, although we believe the asset value exceeds this. Very short and curt.
I think that's a useful plan.
Absolutely.
You know, if you want to take that forward
Thank
with
you very much
anyone
for
else,
your
there is, in fact, a disingenuous approach to what they said they would do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Humphrey, William.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I think all of us, as other members have said, are hugely sympathetic to the plight of your clients and indeed anyone who finds themselves in that position, many through no fault of their own. Mr. Bell, you talk about Cerberus in terms of it being here in terms of a short time scale. Why then, if I heard you correctly, do you think there's a lack of urgency?
I don't know. There are other things I know that are going on with Cerberus and everything else, and their existence here. Whether that's stalled them, I don't know. But I cannot understand, from the initial meetings we had, it flies in the face of what was said.
How would you describe your company's relationship with Cerberus at the moment?
We're civil. We get on. We're very civil. We're always civil with all lenders. And we conduct ourselves in the right way with them. We get our frustrations, we have our words, but we're right the way along. We work right the way through the process with Ulster Bank. As I said before, they were stalled for a couple of years. We worked through with them on that basis. And all banks and lending institutions we work with, but our relationship's fine with them.
Has the company's relationship with Cerberus changed in any way since initially the NAMA deal and Cerberus being introduced into Northern Ireland? No,
because Cerberus, obviously, we were dealing primarily before the cases would have been in Ulster Bank. Then they've gone over to Cerberus. So it's a very short relationship, because I say it's only since July of this year.
The relationship hasn't changed at all?
there isn't such a relationship in existence, and never has been, because we're really on board.
Can I turn then to the suggestions that you make to the committee and how the committee can assist? In terms of point 6, as a result of this, we would respectfully ask for the commitment of both committees to assist. Can I ask then at that point, in terms of both committees, have you sent this to the Finance Committee as well?
This was issued from the department, I think it is the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Investment. If there was another committee that it had to be submitted to, it would have been submitted to if we were advised of that.
Sorry?
If we were advised that there was another committee for this to be provided to, we would have had no problem issuing that, providing
This
it
is
to
just
that
part of your submission to supplement what you're saying today to
Exactly, yes.
committee.
Yeah, but I do think, Chair, that having been said, it does state both committees, so it should have been sent to the Finance Committee. I suppose simply the point I would make.
Okay.
Which it hasn't been. Therefore, in terms of what you would require this committee and the Finance Committee to do then is provide written support, a representative to attend meetings. How do you envisage that working in
No,
actual-
we're not requiring. It's not us trying to make the job easier for ourselves. We just think whether the matter's been brought up today, it's adding gravitas to what the... And again, it's not... I keep reiterating, this is just not this company that's experiencing this. A lot of professional organisations across all of Northern Ireland and in the South are experiencing this. If the attendance of anything from Stormont adds gravitas to the argument, it's not to sway it, it's just so that it's heard properly. And that's what happens.
Right.
With that, it's most instances where jobs are at risk as well. Is that we would ask, maybe someone from the committee who would be able to give more of an insight or consider the jobs at risk in that maybe connection, or if there's several cases. I would think that'd be quite important for maybe if a committee member could attend to be able to consider that in full.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you.
Yep, often, and just picking up on that point, often I, as local MLA for the constituency, has attended, I'm sure other members have done as well, meetings with financial institutions to help assist in those things. So maybe not, if it coincidentally it happens that committee member is a representative for that constituency, yes, that's grand, but and anything we can do to help.
Absolutely, in a perfect world, when I say if you're struggling to get them to talk to you, you see the frustration.
And just on point of information, William, the papers themselves were shared with the members of the Finance and Personnel Committee who are with us here today, just as well, for their...
So all members of the Finance Committee got them?
Yes.
Thanks.
Lord Morris.
Yep. Well, can I thank you for your presentation? And I must confess, listening to it and listening to the round the table here, this is a wee bit like wrestling with smoke. It's very, very hard to get a grip on it. And Claire, there was something you said, and I wondered did I pick you up right, but if I haven't, you'll obviously correct me. Did you say that there was difficulties in obtaining valuations?
No, what in respect of services valuations?
Yes.
No, what happens is our clients instruct their own valuer to provide their valuation report.
That's right.
It is then provided to Cerberus through Capita, or else if Ulster Bank is managing the case. And then what we have been receiving is their value differs from ours. They will not provide their valuation reports, let alone advise us of what value they've assigned to the property. So under no circumstance have we to date been advised of the value that they have assigned to a property or obtained a copy of valuation reports that they have obtained.
So if you get, if your client gets a valuation of a property at X, and Service look at this here, do they confirm, well, that's similar to what we value it at, or in the event of it not being similar, they climb up and say, well, we have no comment to make here?
All they advise is that our valuation differs from that of your clients.
To what extent would this?
That it is literally one line. that we are being provided. And we said, well, if that is the case, can the expert appointed by Cerberus meet with our client's expert? They can discuss if there's any issues that maybe your valuer hasn't taken into consideration, or if there's anything else that Cerberus's valuer has seen that maybe our client's valuer has, overseen. Then both experts can put their heads together and come to, an agreement in respect of the current market value. But to date, they haven't accepted. They haven't been in agreement to any experts meeting. We don't even know who their valuer is, who has been appointed over properties. And where a lot of businesses are concerned, we would advise that a red book valuation would be imperative. Taking into consideration that there has been no request to individuals of allowing a valuer to attend the property and to go through the books, if we can only assume that it's drive-by valuations or desktop valuations, which are not sufficient, especially when it concerns a business. So to answer your question, to date we have not received confirmation of even the name of their valuers, a valuation report, or confirmation of a value they've assigned to any property that we're currently dealing with in any of our clients' cases.
And is it possible that then they work purely on a book valuation of the complete portfolio that they have in their possession?
They could work on a desktop valuation. So say there are a number of properties, say a lot of residential properties, you could work on that basis, yes.
Yeah.
But I
It's
think
not very helpful.
they're an indication.
Yeah,
But if
that's
you're
all.
trying to make, because if somebody's got to go away and sell these properties, they're going to end up going into a contract with Cerberus confirming a price they're going to get. If they're not right, then that may invalidate the agreement. Some of these properties that are involved are a lot more complex than that.
Yeah.
There's, going back to the Red Book, there's going concern issues, etc., that are going on there. So it's
In relation to, you obviously have worked with Ulster Bank,
yes,
and we know they've had their moments too
yes.
in the past. How do you compare, for instance, working with Ulster Bank and working with Cerberus?
It's just almost there's a void period in Ulster Bank where they didn't quite have a lot of direction up to about 18 months prior to November 2013. Ulster Bank seemed to be in a bit of a void.
That's mid-11, you're talking?
Yeah, sort of that sort of period. But there was one a great deal, and I think that was from up on high, as it were. And it was almost, you were almost in that sort of thing. Nobody knows what's going on. So I'll give you one of the most ridiculous examples. Was a company into Ulster Bank, say for about £1 million, and you were arguing on a personal income and expenditure account whether they should have Sky TV or not. It was just something to drag the process out, and it's that sort of state of limbo again. That's what we're facing in a minute. Again, we were asking about, your colleague was asking about the relationship. There's no problems with everything civil. It's not, but it's for clients to be able to move on. I would suggest for Cerberus to be able to move on and start to realise commercially what they should be realising here. But there was a phase when Ulster Bank were after that data said there was about 6 months where the window was open, and they were very open. Let's get on with this. Let's do this. Let's do that. The door sort of closed on that. As they were starting to put the loan book out to tender. That was 2014, sorry, that date, I should have said that, November 2014.
Of the clients that you are representing, what percentage of them would you say are in, let's think of a better word, dire straits here?
In terms of Cerberus?
Survival, yes.
All of our clients are in dire, all of our clients are in dire financial position because they've come to us.
Yes.
So all of, but in terms of, if you're trying to say put a scale on it, all of these guys are facing the edge here, and it's not a good way to be able to conduct your life for sure.
There's different, obviously, levels of someone who's in dire straits. We may have individuals who there will be absolutely no negotiations with their creditors. Their only option for them is bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And then you have companies who have the potentiality of continuing on business just with a more manageable amount of debt. So although most of the clients that come to us are in dire straits now, it's different levels.
Some are able to refinance, and some are dependent on family and friends. It is kind of a different level, but as Terry had rightly said, they are obviously indebted to Cerberus, so
Just the refinancing strategy that you talk about there. How practical is that, bearing in mind the condition that they find themselves in, and also obviously going to another bank or another lending source are going to take a look at all this and say, hold on a moment.
No, you're right. That changes quite regularly as well. Some banks, so for instance, Barclays are pretty good in the agricultural field, but they change slightly with the breeze in terms of criteria, whether they're looking at debt forgiveness cases or not. This is about debt forgiveness. So as an example, if you owe £2 million to a bank, but they say, well, right, we'll take £1 million, it's the ability then to get that £1 million out. Now, a couple of the banks are working away people, and it's the only place to go to get refinance. There's not, obviously everybody knows here in terms of the banking structure, so there's not a lot of finance around. So it's a case of then the lender taking the view, if these people can go and get us £1 million here, do we entertain it? But it's not easy. It's not easy.
And of your clients that you're working and operating with, are they all, or the majority of them, working with what I would call straightforward banking arrangements?
In the main.
Mainly.
Yep.
And Northern Ireland-based banking?
In the main again, yes.
In the main.
Yep.
Tell me this. In the event of, seldom if a company goes down, goes down a loan, but very often
Absolutely.
takes something else with it. Can you give us any indication of the likelihood of, if tomorrow all of the companies that you're representing, or all the lenders, they all just went under, which would be a tragedy? What's the fallout impact from that?
There are many different measures, but typically if you used on the base, because you get subcontractors off there and everything else, and the suppliers, and if they're strong in a local area, that's a key factor. We could work on the basis of 2 or 3 times the actual effect on just the headline figure, if you like. Yeah. Because if you've got a construction firm, say, they will have a core of staff, but they will use subcontractors all around them. Those guys can go and find other work, but it's obviously going to hit them. Some of them work continually with them, but it's very hard to put a measure. But there are stats out there, but 2 to 3 times, subject to where that business is. You got the Gallagher factory. Obviously, that would have been a massive hit in the local economy because it's so centralised. So it's a bit hard to put a figure on, but it does have a multiple effect for sure.
Sorry, it's not just jobs actually that are affected in this too. It's also, some of these businesses are actually providing like healthcare, like nursing homes, nurseries. So it is constituents that are going to be, hit as well.
And once them businesses as well are gone, if you like, and if the premises are sold, if there is a residual liability still due owing after that, that's when they go to the individuals and pursue them for their personal assets, be it their dwelling home. Sometimes vehicles, could be repossessed, or proceeding with a bankruptcy route as well. Now, at that stage, if an agreement is 100% not going to, if an agreement can't be achieved, we will more than likely proceed with the bankruptcy route with the client themselves and advise them accordingly of that. But even taken away, once the business is gone and the property is sold and the jobs are lost, that's when the borrower, their home is at risk, their assets are at risk, and then that's where they're going to have to look at other sources of living, so on and so forth as well.
Bankruptcy is again, what any businessman or woman in this is trying to seek some sort of finality. Bankruptcy is a finality. It's a bit of a desperate one, but sometimes it's the one that gives the chance to go on and do whatever you're going to do going forward with your life. And that is all people are looking for. The people that are still in existence, if you like, from what happened back in the day, they are the good guys. I wouldn't say that anyway, but they are the good guys. They've paid their dues. They've done the best for the banks. They've gone here. They've opened buildings up to get value and everything else. They've done everything they can. They just wanted closure on this. And none of them want it to be bad news, but if it's going to be bad news, put them out their pain, because the suffering is immense.
Your request for a meeting with the Finance Minister,
yes.
You have submitted that?
Yes, well, we're waiting a representative to come back.
I don't know whether there's any consolation to you or not, but I mean, I certainly, and I suspect maybe my colleagues anyway, would support that, and hopefully.
It's
that
just
that
trying to, exactly, and I think it's within reason, sorry to interrupt you, Laura, but it's anything that helps our case, doesn't help our case. We're not looking to, yes, we want to save our clients money, but it's got to go through the normal processes. It's what we can do. But it's purely to get that transparency, and if you like, that conduit where you can have the conversation. At the minute, I may as well speak to this tabletop in some instances.
The economy is in a better condition. It's not. It's
No, very good. No.
than it was and has been, and it's going that direction, which
Yes.
is very encouraging.
Absolutely.
Now, bearing in mind that you are dealing with a legacy of a turbulent time, which some of us might say was the banks played their share in that turbulence. Is there any hope, or is there any positivity for your clients, whoever they might be, as we enter into better times? Or is it a case that the cause is lost? This is what I'm concerned about. Is the cause lost as far as you're concerned, and it's now going to be as soft a landing as you can possibly make it for them?
It is again, using that phrase you used, it's to get some finality.
Yeah.
And it's, yes, you want the soft landing, we don't want people to suffer. But it's very, very important. I'm not a politician, but it's very, very important for the Northern Irish economy that these good men and women are out there doing the job again. Some people that have been released and gone through the process and with other banks, different men and women, they're great, they're tearing away, there's great success cases. But you cannot keep people trapped like this. The economy is improving. Get these guys and these men, people back into the system, back in the process, contributing to what's going on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much indeed for that. Can I just, picking up on some other stuff that you were referring to, the process of the valuations there, Claire. We all know how this works. They originally will have done their valuations, I presume, as part of the portfolio that came over to them. You come in with the valuation which says this property portfolio or this business or whatever it is worth X number of pounds. Do they ever come back and say, well, I'm sure a lot of you could maybe say because of the nature of the process, you're a bit too high there or whatever.
They ever come back to advise that it's possibly too high?
Too high or even too low, you know? Do they ever give any indication? Is there anything that comes back at you which says they've actually done a valuation here?
All that they say is the value that has been assigned in most instances is that it more than covers the liability that's due and owing. Now, in some instances, for an example, where a client is in debt of in around 1.9 million, and our valuation of the property portfolio is in around 1.2.
Yes.
That's quite a significant difference, and they have advised that the portfolio will be able to pay that debt in full. We have asked for confirmation of how they see that, because if it can, then that is brilliant. You know, and most instances, you know, with our clients at that high of a level, if they're getting support from a third-party financial institution by way of finance, you know, the lending institution is going to conduct their own valuation.
Yes.
And provide funds that would be, for example, 70% of what they think it is worth, or you know, within that region. And even though we are advising them, even, you know, this is our valuation, the lending, and in this instance, the lending institution had valued it slightly higher than ours, and we declared that to them. But still, they were just of the opinion, no, the value of the properties will pay the liability in full, and they have proceeded with the appointment of receivers over the properties now.
That sounds kind of bizarre.
Yes.
Unless there's some other agenda at work. Like either they haven't got very good valuers, or there's some other game plan of it, some anticipated game plan, whatever that might be.
What it would appear would be the magic number that they've referred to on quite a couple, you know, on a few occasions, is that, you know, they say that their value outweighs the liability, and then they'll say, you know, and it's over like maybe a telephone conversation, they'll say, Cerberus has assigned this value, a value to this connection. If you hit that number, then no matter what the value of the security we've assigned to the portfolio, we will accept it. And we're, well, can we have a bit of insight on what this number that you have assigned to this connection and how you have came around to seeing that being achieved. And it's just, no, you have to come up with a number.
If you just go back to a case, if I may, just to give you an example in respect of Ulster Bank, there was an instance where a valuer did a drive-by valuation,
Yes.
made a mess of the valuation essentially. That was up, say, towards $1 million. Our client's valuation, which is by Rick's valuer, then that man would stand by it, was 500,000. And then we got into some dialogue. We said, hang on a minute, we don't think you quite got that right. This is the bottom land there that he didn't see is not that.
Yes.
And you got into some dialogue and some discussion. There was a bit of movement from 500 materially down from $1 million, but the discussion was had because it was open. Back to the thing I keep going on about, just a little bit of transparency. I could, if you say it's worth 500, I might say it's $1 million, but give me my justification. It's almost like I don't need to.
Unusual way to do it. Pluck figures out of there, or not. You just don't know. Okay, right. That concludes our session with you today. Thanks very much indeed for, first of all, writing to us and offering your information, and secondly, being with us here today to give of your time. I found that very insightful and very helpful. And again, as I can speak certainly for myself, I've been there before and done it with constituents. If it can be of any help to anyone from a constituency, I'll certainly try my best to weigh in those difficult circumstances that families often find themselves in, because
Absolutely.
often it's the human face of this that's forgotten about.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your time, and we'll decide as a committee here what we do to advance this a bit. Okay?
Yes,
Thank you very
you.
Okay, members, that concludes our, if you like, collaborative bit on the agenda with the Finance and Personnel Committee. So it's for ourselves here then as a Enterprise Committee to decide what we're going to do about it. I would suggest, Martine, you were making a proposal earlier on there. That's the exact thinking that was in my mind, that we invite Cerberus to come along and meet with us. It has clearly raised excuse me, a whole lot of issues there that are deeply concerning about how they're approaching these matters and affecting people. So,
Mr. Chair,
I'm happy enough to put that proposal.
This is actually a different issue. This isn't the issue that we're talking about around across the street. The Finance Committee. This is about what these people talk about. What's about the jobs? It's about creation, about getting people back to work, and that's what we want to invite Cerberus to speak about.
Yes, that's correct. Members happy enough with that? Yep, great. Okay, thank you for that. So that concludes now. We'll move on then
Chair,
to the...
Gordon mentioned the Financial Ombudsman. Did I miss?
Yeah, we can write to the Financial Ombudsman and see the Financial Ombudsman or the FCA.
Well, I would actually like to find out who has power in relation to this. This is not
this issue, and see what their...
Do they have any role?
Yep, Jim has made an indication. We get a bit of research done from... Members are happy enough with that.
Chair, just as we're closing this session, can I thank the committee for inviting themselves to the session today, and I would say we have to conclude on our own inquiry regarding the sale of Project Eagle. There's some quite relevant information there too, but I think this is something we need to keep a watching eye over, even just for the next 10 weeks, and certainly if there's anything else we can do in terms of helping, don't hesitate to
Well, we'll make sure and tic-tac in line with good practice in the Assembly anyway, so, okay, and thank you and your members for attending today. Okay. All right, we move then to the Enterprise Trade and Investment Committee agenda, the agenda item number 4, which is the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of December 2015. That's from page 30 onwards. So if members are content with the accuracy and detail of those minutes, read. Yep. Agenda item number 5 is Chairperson's business. We have an invitation to attend a roundtable discussion in advance of a luncheon by Action Renewables at their annual awards. That's on the 31st of March. Unfortunately, I can't attend, and it's also following dissolution. So if anybody wanted to attend that, we've maybe notified.
Sorry, Chair, it's following dissolution, so there's
following
no committee,
dissolution, so it would be.
Can't be.
Well, maybe just we'll put it out there, and if in their individual capacity as members, we can deliberate on it and see if they want to attend that, okay? Next item is the launch of the Utility Regulators Consumer Protection Strategy, an invitation to the Chair and Deputy Chair to the launch of the Utility Regulators Consumer Protection Strategy. This is at page 3 of the table papers, and the event is on Friday the 12th from 11 a.m. till 12 noon at the NICFA offices in Belfast. I'm unable to attend that one, so Conor, are you able to attend?
No, it's on Friday, isn't it?
Friday,
I
I
had to go
know.
back to the
Indeed.
committee staff and not be able to.
So maybe some of our more urban members might want to attend. That's in your
Right,
constituency.
it is, but Friday for me, Chair, is
Aye,
a
no
general
problem.
day.
No, no,
It's flat out, I'm afraid.
I agree, right. Unless anybody else wants to, anybody else can attend, just please notify the office. Next item is correspondence from the Irish Congress of Trade Unions regarding asbestos in schools. That's at page 39. Excuse me. ICTU are requesting that Yeti Chair and Chair of the Committee for Education co-sponsor this event early in the new year to launch a position paper on joint union campaign regarding asbestos in schools. So if members are happy enough that I co-sponsor this event along with isn't it Peter Weir, unless he is gone elsewhere, has he? No?
No word.
No word yet, no. Okay, read then. Thank you.
Is that a leak? Can I consider that a leak?
I don't know.
Tweet that.
Well, he's one of, he's one of you tear away there. See the right marching. Agenda item number 6. Legislation, that's the legislative consent memorandum on the Enterprise Bill, the Small Business Commissioners provision. The committee's draft report is at page 41. So if members are happy enough with the draft report, agreed? Agenda item number 7, that's matters arising. There are 5 items on the matters arising index, which is page 44. So, okay, agreed with the suggested course of action for those, the bottom 4, and agenda item number 7.2 then is the list of outstanding issues. This is outstanding departmental issues. So if members are content to reissue a request to the department asking for the status of the Tamboran petroleum licence application, and in regard to the committee's request to the Minister to brief the committee on Intertrade Ireland's budget, are members content to receive a briefing in the first instance from officials when they brief the committee next week on the budget and January monitoring? Agreed?
Yes.
Excuse me. Our remaining items on the index, if content with that suggestion, we've already dealt with that. Actions for the remaining items. Agenda item number 8 is legislation SL1 Renewable Obligation Amendment Order Northern Ireland 2016. The papers for this item include a cover note at page 57, the SL1 at page 58. The rule subject to affirmative resolution, and its proposed rule would come into operation on the 1st of March. This is the committee's opportunity to consider the policy set out in the SL1, as it isn't possible to amend this once the rule has been made and laid in the Assembly Business Office. So if members are content with the policy implications of the proposal. Agreed?
Great.
Agenda item number 9, proposed early closure of the Nairo on onshore wind. We have considerable amount of papers here. Correspondence Secretary for Energy and Climate Change at page 63. From recollection of that, I think there may be one letter missing there, dated either the 7th or the 8th of July, which we received at our meeting on the... Sorry, what's that? Oh, it's tabled. Okay, that's grand. I spotted it just last night, so that's been tabled. We have a departmental response regarding the Carson Madole, page 64. And the departmental response regarding the committee's queries from its meeting of the 10th of November, pages 65 to 86, and correspondence from SSE, page 87. We have 2 Assembly research papers from pages 91 to 103, and just coincidentally, the correspondence from the DEC Secretary back to us doesn't refer to the actual reason why we were writing to her, and that was to request a meeting. No.
You want to talk about someone else, did you?
Sure, I would
didn't want
invite
to talk to us
sure,
at all.
I'd like to invite you to summarise where we are on this.
I'll just not go there because I think maybe somebody else will be doing a whole lot of summation elsewhere around it. And there's somebody probably eminently more qualified than myself with 2 wee letters attached to their name. On this, I think we really have to write back to the Secretary of State and say, we had requested a meeting around this because of the importance of it. You haven't even addressed that in your letter. Could you please reconsider, please? Okay? So, members content to note then, agenda item number 10 is the forward work programme, and papers for this item include the draft forward work programme, that's at page 108, and correspondence from a member regarding Invest NI, that's at page 113, and then a ministerial cover letter regarding going for growth at page 114. Now, the Fergal, I know he's not here, but this was, if you recall, the last time we met with Chief Executive of Invest NI, felt there were a few more issues that we could talk to the Chief Executive about, and we were very constrained by time. If you recall, that day we had another gentleman waiting to make a presentation too. So, are we happy to have the Chief Executive of Invest NI back?
Sure.
Again.
I thought you held them to account fairly well, even in the short period. But I think maybe we should explore areas that we didn't manage to discuss with them, and I presume they'll come in before the end of the mandate. I would
hope so. Aye.
Okay. Anyways, but I'd be a bit reluctant to say to him, we feel we didn't hold you to account, and we had a very comprehensive talk through with him. But if Fergal wanted to attend back some of the
he
areas,
did also give a commitment to didn't need to work with Fergal on issues that were outstanding.
He did, and to be fair, Fergal's not here to speak for himself, so we'll maybe leave it to next week and allow Fergal to
The honest thing,
address
Chair,
that
we
concern.
need to be clear on what we want from him.
Oh, I know.
That's important. And
Aye. Now,
as already been said, it was quite a comprehensive discussion, and it runs a fairly familiar format every 6 months or so. So, to be fair to both parties, I think we need clarification of what is.
it's all right. We'll leave it then to next week.
There will always be other issues we can raise with them. So I think the opportunity would be welcome.
Now, then, if members are content to commission research to provide a summary of the key work undertaken on the potential impact of Brexit on the economies north and south, and this paper to form part of our discussions during our visit on the 28th of January to Oireachtas Joint Committee on Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation. That's the 28th of January, where we're headed down. So I know it had to be put off the last time, not enough was available to go. Members happy enough we get a bit of research around that? There should be a bit done already.
Right.
Okay. And the following members have confirmed their attendance for that meeting. Myself, Conor, Megan, Fergal, Marcin, and I think, Gordon, you're going
Possible.
Aye. Gordon as well. Now,
they're going-
Stephen Agnew and Paul Given have confirmed they are unable to attend. But if members just would confirm with the committee office as to their availability to attend. Okay?
What are the timings for that, do you know?
It's starting at 11 o'clock, isn't it?
Starting at 11 o'clock and usually finishes shortly after lunchtime, 2:30, 3.
Okay. Right. Now, also then,
Going abroad for a day.
if we're content to hold a concurrent meeting in March with the Committee for Agriculture and Rural Development, referred to it earlier, to receive an oral briefing on going for growth, the concurrent meeting would be from 12:30 to 1:30 following our committee meeting. So if members are content to agree the forward work programme with that included, okay? Agreed?
Chair, just on, I think it'd be
Yes.
important that we,
Gordon.
I don't want to start breaking over old ground, but I think it's important we clarify exactly, is it a joint meeting or is it a shared meeting?
No, that'll be a joint meeting because
So-
there's...
Will be notified
Sorry, Chair,
accordingly?
it was agreed in that instance on going for growth that they would be joint meetings.
Aye.
So it's a different format that will require a quorum from both committees. Now, we have just been informed that the 1st of March doesn't suit officials, so that date is liable to change.
But this committee taking the lead.
No, it's not. We're both charging head together. That's what we want.
Co-equals.
We're collectively going for growth. Right.
Right, well, since we're all going for that, we'll see now.
Aye. Right.
We'll try and squeeze it in, Chair.
I think it's important, that one. Very important.
Rattled around a long time.
It is.
But worried it's not really the delivery on it. But We'll see.
Yep. Okay. Agenda item number 11 is correspondence. There are 5 items of correspondence, and the index is page 116. We have correspondence from NIPSA regarding proposals for the replacement of the construction, design and management regulations Northern Ireland 2007, and the correspondence is from page 117 onwards. Now, I know they've said there's reference here, we didn't expect the Assembly to slavishly follow what was happening in GB, but this is the first time this has been drawn to my attention and this committee's attention as an issue. So, then maybe forgive us, we can't be mind readers all of the time. But anyway, to deal with the issue, they have raised a number of concerns that they see here. So they're requesting an opportunity to meet with the committee to raise their concerns. So what do members feel? Meet with them.
So it would be important to confirm the committee has already seen the SL1
Yes.
and has said that it is content with the policy proposals in the SL1.
Yes.
The SR is due on the 15th of May, according to the Forward Work Programme.
Aye.
Sorry, the 15th of March.
15th of March. But we can still meet with NIPSA and talk it through with them.
What about someone from the department then advising us on
Aye. The same day.
the same day? I think
Aye,
would be
that'd be a
useful.
good idea.
So that would be a formal committee meeting rather than an informal meeting with
I
NIPSA in
think,
the first
yes.
instance.
And as well as this, just as I'm talking through these things, just to make sure there's compatibility, would it be helpful to members if we also wrote to the Irish Congress of Trade Unions and establish if there's any similar concerns with them, just to make sure there's consistency across the way here?
Mr. Chair. Noted, yeah. If you
Okay, great then. Then we have correspondence from the Northern Ireland Solar Trade Association. That's at page 137. The organisation raises issues relating to the impact on the industry of delays by NIE network and processing grid. So, now, what they have given us sort of, if you like, general issues, but they haven't been very specific in their detail around this matter. So, would it be helpful if we wrote back to them asking for a written briefing in the first instance, outlining the extent and nature of the problem? It's very general. There's not a lot of detail in that letter.
We've had quite a bit of discussion, Chair, on this issue. I suppose a lot of it was more on the large-scale wind.
Aye.
I suppose.
Let's move to solar.
You would think there are similar issues, and with more detail would be useful, Chair.
Shine some light on it. Right. The remaining items on the index, then, if members are content with the suggested actions for those remaining items. Now, can I ask members then if they're content to deal with items 13 and 14 now, before we move to closed session for agenda item number 12. Agenda item number 13 is any other business. Don't think we have any unless you have it. I don't have any additional notified items of business. And agenda item number 14 is date, time and place of next meeting, which is this week, 19th at 10 a.m, and we're back in room 29. So now the committee will go into closed session now to receive a briefing from Research and Innovation Services regarding budget scrutiny. So,
Programmes.